Hey everyone, Chris here from Nightshade Mini Studio, and today we're going to go through a quick tutorial on how to complete the industrial bases that were used on the Night Lords that were featured in the first video that we posted. We're going to use a variety of material here and walk through the whole process from construction to completion. So you can follow along. If you have any questions, shoot those over to us at nightshadeministudio@outlook.com. Check out our website at www.nightshadeministudio.com and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nightshadeministudio. And go ahead and click subscribe to get the latest updates on new videos as they're posted. Alright, so let's get started. So the first thing we have here is sheet styrene by Plastruct. And these are a few of the materials that we've used before on some of the other bases. So sheet styrene, as you can see, there's some diamond plate. This is plastic canvas. You can pick that up from any arts and crafts store. You may hear people refer to it as granny grating. Those are some different tubes from Plastruct, guitar string, and then applique pins. The majority of this can be picked up from your local game store or from a local arts and crafts store. So the first thing that we're going to do is cut the styrene sheet into the shape of the base. And I've just taken a pencil and made an outline of that. And now I'm using a hobby knife to score the lines. And with this stuff, it's not entirely necessary to cut all the way through. You can break that off. And as you can see here, it wasn't a very clean cut, but that's alright because we're only going to use a piece of this anyway. And now we're going to do the same thing with the granny grate. So we're going to match that up and trim off a little bit there and cut this in half. We're actually going to do half of the base in the grating and half in the sheet styrene. So we're going to match those two up and score that, and now we have the two halves of our base. So now we're going to lay down some super glue, and this is just plain super glue, nothing special. And we're going to lay down the two sections and get those slid into place and press down here. And once that's all lined up, we'll sit and let it dry. And we're going to cut another thin strip here of a thinner styrene sheet to lay up against the grating. And this is going to give us a good barrier here to apply rivets to. So we'll let that dry, we'll come back, and now we're going to flip the base over and use the edge of the base against the edge of the hobby knife here to trim the excess. And this will let us match the styrene up to the edges of the base and give us a much cleaner look. And once that's done, we're going to add a little bit of detail here. So we're going to take a guitar string, which, as you know, has the sort of ribbed appearance of some of the tubings that you'll see in the 40K universe. We'll cut that to fit and lay down some super glue. And I had a little bit of a mess there, so I just cleaned that up, slide that into place, and then we'll let that dry. Now while that's drying, I'm going to take a hobby drill here and pre-drill holes for the areas that we're going to apply the applique pin rivets to. And you can do as many or as few as you like here. The reason that we're doing this is because when we cut the pin, it's not going to be flush to the head. It's nearly impossible to get that completely flush. So this gives us a bit of a recess to sit the shank of the pin into. So now we're going to take some end snips and we're just going to snip the ends of the heads of the pins off here. And I'm collecting them in the cup because when you snip these, they tend to fly off. So if you don't use the cup, you run the risk of losing the pin heads that you've spent the time to cut here. And you definitely want to dispose of the pin shanks here in some kind of container rather than just throwing them into the garbage can. Without the pin head on them, there's nothing to stop them from running all the way into your foot. So now I'm going to apply a little bit of super glue to the holes that we just drilled. And I'm going to use a pair of tweezers here to lay the pin heads into the pre-drilled holes. Now these are so small that they really, I'm not even picking them up here. I'm using literally the side of the tweezers to statically pick them up. They're super small, they're very light. The little bit of static energy that you have flowing from your body into the tweezers will absolutely pick these up. So we'll get those all set in there. Now I'm going to take a hobby knife here and just mar up the surface of the plastic card. Again, this is an optional step, but it will add some detail to it. So we've done that. Now we've gone and primed the entire thing black. So we are now to the point that we are going to paint this up. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to paint the entire base in lead belcher. Now, it should be noted that if you were going to make a mold of these, which, you know, I would recommend if you're going to do a ton of them, or if you don't really care to have a lot of variation, that you do that because these are so time consuming to build with the numerous pieces of material that you're going to use. Obviously, you wouldn't paint this prior to doing that. This is greedy gold. We're going to mix this with a little bit of lead belcher and paint the tubing here, just to give it a different metallic appearance and offset it from the rest of the base a little bit. And you can paint these any color you want. On some of my bases I've done them in reds, blues, greens, just different accent colors that you would possibly see on the industrial flooring. So now we're going to take Rizza Rust and water this down a little bit and paint this into all of the crevices and corners here on the grating and on the rivets. Again, optional step, but it is that little bit extra that will set this off and give it more of a worn look. Now I pointed there, I didn't actually paint any into those gouges on the floor, because we're going to go back in when we're done here, and we're going to paint over those anyway. I'm going to do some hazard striping here. So this is all freehand. It's such a small area, you don't need to mask this off or be super precise with the lines, because we're only talking about, you know, fractions of centimeters in some cases here. So I'm just blocking out the hazard striping right now with Abaddon Black. And now I'm going to go in with Abaddon Black and fill in the alternating lines. And as you can see, I'm painting over some of those gouges, so it wouldn't have really made any sense to apply any Rizza Rust to those areas. And just doing a couple thin coats to keep my lines nice and straight. So once the black's done, we're going to go in with Averland Sunset, which is a really great yellow for this this type of application, I think. And we're going to do the alternate stripes here. Now if you make a mistake at this point with the yellow, it's super easy to go in with the black and fix any of those mistakes, which is why I do it in the order that I do. Alright, now we're going to go back in with lead belcher and paint in those gouges just a little bit to reestablish the steel where the paint may have been knocked off. And now I'm going to take a sponge, as you would in any other sponge weathering that we've done in some of the other videos. I'm just going to go in and break up the yellow a little bit, give it a bit of a chipped surface look to it. And now I'm going to apply very heavy and very liberally a wash of non-oil. And I'm just setting this up on the on a cap here just to make it a little bit easier to manipulate when I do this. And you can really start to see the detail get picked out with the grading. You want to make sure you go in and get some non-oil in each one of those areas there to darken up the recess. So once that's all dry, again, this is really a purely optional step depending on what you do with the lead belcher, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint the rim of this base black. And I'm just going to use Vallejo's Surface Primer Black to do that, just because it covers super well. So we're going to paint the rim here. Again, Surface Primer Black by Vallejo. And there you can see our completed base. The weathered grading and weathered hazard lines, and the deep metallic to mimic an industrial floor. And we'll bring in a finished contemptor here so you can see what that looks like with a model on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, shoot those over to me at nightshadeministudio@outlook.com. Check us out online at nightshadeministudio.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/nightshadeministudio. And thanks again.